Hey guys, Tisha here, and we are back for another Love Times 3 book review. This one is entitled A New Marriage. True, we practice plural marriage, not, however, because we are compelled to, but because we are convinced that it is a divine revelation, and we find in this principle a satisfaction, contentment, and more happiness than we can contain in any other relationship. This is from Ellis Shipp, a plural wife, and an early 20th century obstetrician. Alina. Before Vicky and I married Joe, I hoped there would be more than 2 wives in our family. Vicky and I had even joked about Joe eventually having 10 wives with 10 kids each. The thought of that, I could never. I had a dreamy vision of us getting along nicely and having fun making cookies with our dozens of children. Although I was a little naive about the realities of this lifestyle, I knew that expanding our family would bring richer textures and layers to our relationships and increase our opportunities for personal growth. In the years since we married, I thought a lot about the perfect sister wife. She had to have values that aligned with ours. She couldn't be interested only in Joe and want a separate, distant life with him. You see what I'm saying? As early on as the beginning of their marriages, these ladies thought about how important it was for their family to function as a whole, which is quite different than some of the things that we see with the Browns, because they really, the women, took time to get to know one another outside of their dynamic with their husband. And as a result, they formed a true bond, which is what the sister wife bond, from what we're told, is supposed to be. Okay. After 10 years of marriage, we had really put our motto, CTR, communication, trust, and respect, into practice, and our life together flowed without too much effort. We had ups and downs in our individual marriages, but we had been able to work through them. In fact, a friend had warned me that another woman would never be able to fit into our family because it worked so well and because Vicky and I were so close. In any case, despite my youthful hopes for more sister wives, over the years, we never had a serious interest in anyone until Val. That's interesting. That Val was the first person that they considered to seriously want to be a part of their family. Vicky and I had tried to keep in contact with Val after we married. We stayed overnight at her home in Mapleton a time or two and always had great fun talking into the wee hours of the night. As far as I could tell, things seemed to be going well for her. Life was not without its challenges, but that was to be expected. She was adjusting to a new family. Once Val moved to Pleasant Valley, we saw much less of her. Soon, though, the family network began to buzz about problems. Val's mother was very worried and would sometimes drop comments about how David was doing this or doing that, taking karate lessons, for example, while his whole family barely survived. I knew that Vicky's mom sometimes worried needlessly about her, so I suspected that she was being overly protective of Val. My policy was to never listen to gossip, especially when the talk contradicted what I personally knew. From what I knew of Donald, he was funny and charming, and Val had never said anything negative to me about her husband. Just because it's not being said doesn't mean that it's not occurring. I understand her saying that she doesn't follow the gossip of things, but well, no, I was going to say I wish she would ask her sooner, but even if she did ask her, there's no guarantee she would have told her. That's not her responsibility. One day I had lunch with several of Vicky and Val's sisters. Val had confided in her sister Bonnie about Donald's gambling problems and the family's financial straits. I found the stories hard to believe and said so, but Bonnie insisted they were true. Val just didn't want to impose on her family. Bonnie said, "That got me to thinking, and looking back, I could see signs of trouble, such as the way Donald didn't seem to keep a job." It wasn't long after that luncheon that Val left Donald and moved to Montana to live with another sister. Obviously, I had been wrong. Val was a very loyal person, and I knew she would not have left her marriage unless she felt that it was the only option. I finally had a chance to speak directly with Val when she came to Salt Lake City to visit family. I sat down with her, trying to communicate how stunned and sad I was, and how I hated to see her family break up. "Why didn't you tell us what was going on?" I asked. "I heard things, but I didn't want to listen to the rumors. I covered for Donald, but I'm done doing that," Val said. You know, for a long time, our marriage problems felt like a reflection on me. And I know how you feel about divorce being a last resort. I didn't think you'd be supportive. I would never be your judge, I said. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you more. I didn't see Val again until she came back to Utah for her release hearing and stayed with us for the night. Val had lost weight by then, had a new haircut, and seemed to have a new lease on life. We were getting the children ready for bed when Joe came home that evening. Okay, so I'm assuming that we're going to be hearing her perspective and what Joe told her based on his experience. This should be good. He walked in the room and I saw this connection pass between him and Val. It happened in the blink of an eye, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. Okay, so what he felt, what Val felt, Alina witnessed. And all the times we've been around Val, I had never witnessed anything like that moment, and it really surprised me. That night, we stayed up late talking, and Val opened up about what she'd been through. As I listened and watched her, I kept thinking, whoa, maybe there is something here. In the days that followed, I asked God to help me know if Val belonged in our family. So that one exchange then had her seeking guidance in regards to whether or not Val was the other person that was supposed to be in her family. That must have been some exchange to witness that that's the conclusion that she came to. And if it's not the right thing, then let it close and go away, I prayed. But the feeling didn't go away. It grew stronger. And as soon as I discovered that Vicky shared it, I went to Joe finally and told him how I felt. I was thinking, maybe Val could marry you, I said. Joe stared at me and then told me to drop it. Okay, so we know that Joe told us that he told her to drop it. And here she is also verifying that she was told by Joe to drop it. Well, okay, I said, but you'll want to think about it because it's probably going to happen. Joe eventually told Vicky and me that he received a spiritual prompting about Val, and we began praying together for confirmation of our feelings. I became more convinced that we belonged together with each passing day. I was excited about the prospect of Val becoming part of our family. I had a genuine love and concern for her, and I wanted her to be the happiest she possibly could be. I wonder if the Browns did the same thing where they were praying together in regards to the additions to their family. It seems to me like it was more of a thing where Cody just handled that situation and didn't necessarily confide in his wives because he used each wife as a means to alleviate whatever issues he was going on with one of the other wives or with the two wives together. So I wonder if they took this step because it has seemed to work for this family because as far as I know, this family is all still together. I thought that would fit into our family well and add vibrance to our lives. Excuse me, I guess I'm going to be rude the whole video and keep yawning. Sorry. I'm sitting here reading. I'm like, don't yawn, don't yawn, don't yawn. And then I yawn. And then I try to stop thinking about it. And then I yawn again. Like right now. I need to stop talking about it because I'm going to do it again. Let me start that over. I thought Val would fit into our family well and add vibrancy to our lives, just as I had always hoped when I thought about the perfect sister wife. I figured it would take a while for Val's heart to be opened, though, and for her to be ready to consider our family. I definitely wasn't expecting what happened the next time she came to Utah to visit us and look for a car. Joe offered to help her with the car search, and they were gone all day. I knew what was up the minute they came back to the house that afternoon, both of them wearing rather odd expressions. I just can't get over the fact that he went to go help her find a car and then it ended into a proposal. Like, steps are missing there to me, but this is a story at this time that we've been given by multiple people, so we're just going to go with what they're telling us. So, well, did you find a car? I asked him. Joe had a big grin and both Joe had a big grin, but Val looked a bit uncomfortable. I've got something to tell you, he said, calling Vicky to join us. Joe described the amazing experience they'd had that day, then circled back to the main point. And we're engaged, Joe said. I knew that Val and Joe had several long talks about that. She frequently called him for advice, but I didn't think her view of Joe had shifted yet from friend to husband. I looked at Vicky. Did I miss something here? I thought they went to buy a car. That's exactly how I felt when I read it. Like, why did I miss something? How do we skip all of these steps? How do we go from, I don't want to marry him, I don't want to get married anytime soon, I need time to, heal from this whole thing, it's been 8 months, to help me look for a car. Oh, I don't want that one because it reminds me of my ex-husband and something he would like, to now we're engaged after picking out this car. So I feel Alina with that. I thought they went to buy a car, I said, and they came home engaged. We all started laughing. I found the situation almost comical because it had developed so quickly. They showed us their engagement photos, including one with their faces close, staring into each other's eyes, noses nuzzled together. My mind reeled as I tried to process the giant leap they'd taken. Vicky and I had been the first to suggest the idea, but now a new marriage was really going to happen. Was I ready? Keep in mind at this point that I believe she was pregnant. I had an underlying peace that carried me over the next months through the tough moments of watching my husband court a new wife. After 10 years of marriage, Joe and I had the love, trust, and appreciation for each other that come with time. As in most marriages, time also brings out a lot of little annoyances. Val and Joe, on the other hand, were in that dreamy state where shortcomings and flaws don't exist. While they were courting, Joe said to me, Val appreciates me for who I am. She's just so grateful for everything. My immediate thought, give it time and it will become very real. But the comment also made me think about my relationship with Joe in a new way. I could see there were things that could be improved and things that I had begun taking for granted. Their courtship revitalized my marriage. After Joe and Val became engaged, our discussions turned into moving Val to Utah and helping the children adjust. I expected that accepting Val into the family would be a smoother experience for me emotionally than when Vicky and I had both dated and married Joe, and I was right. I was older, more confident, and experienced in dealing with the natural feelings that come with sharing your husband. At the time Joe courted Val, I was pregnant with my 5th child. In fact, we planned their wedding so it would take place after the birth, which it did, just barely, when I went past my due date. I had already experienced times in our marriage when I was pregnant and Vicky was not, leaving her free to do more things than I could. I knew that having Joe court and marry a new wife would present the same challenge, whether or not I was pregnant. In fact, Joe and I were particularly close during this pregnancy. He went overboard in letting me know how integral our relationship was to what was developing with Val. I never felt that Joe was out looking for a replacement for me, his pregnant wife, or off having a good time while I was home miserable. His heart was sincere. When the time finally came for me to deliver, Val was there, as was Vicky. After Kyra's birth, I felt as I always do, euphoric and ready to start anew. It was an ideal time to be welcoming my new sister wife into our family, but I underestimated the work and introspection it would take to transition my relationship with Val from friends to sister wives. Val's ideas about the correct way to live the principle were different from ours. Vicky and I agreed from the start that we wanted to live in the same house so that Joe could be with the children every night. I assumed Val would feel the same way, but she did not, at least not as she'd been not until she had been a part of our family for several years. So Val, when she came in, was kind of like Robin, because we know that Robin was offered to move into the house by Janelle, and she said no, she wanted her own space. So this is kind of similar in that concept. Val initially wanted to live separately, which she thought would allow for more individuality in her relationship with Joe. That was difficult for me. It threatened my dream of a big, close family. Would this divide us? It took a lot for me to support Val with unconditional acceptance of her choices. Just because I chose to live with Vicky didn't mean that this was Val's ideal. I had to take a hard look at myself, which brought me back to the reasons I wanted to live this lifestyle in the first place. Vicky. When Val and I were teenagers, I was quite competitive with her and always was trying to establish my own separate identity. I kept my own group of friends and tried not to date the same guys Val did. While we had both gone on dates with Joe in high school, I never imagined us both marrying him or any other guy for that matter. I love Val, but I didn't want us to always be the twinners. I didn't think it might be cool if we were married to the brothers. I did think it might be cool if we were married to brothers, always double dating and hanging out together, even going on family trips. But one husband? I wasn't ready to consider anything like that back then, and I would never be ready to consider anything like that. Let's be clear. Even I saw Tia put in a previous book's comments after I said something about I'd never be able to date the same person as my sister, that she wouldn't even want to deal with any of her friends. So I think a lot of us can kind of agree that we will want no parts of this arrangement in terms of being married to the same person as our sister. Once Val married Donald, we didn't see a lot of each other since we didn't live in the same city and we moved in different social circles. Val was busy with her new family. I was working full time and was spending every free moment with Joe and Alina. Val and I would catch up on each other's lives occasionally, and family gatherings and her marriage seemed all right to me, though there were hints it was more challenging than my own. Val and I would talk to each other on her birthday, and I would ask how she celebrated or what presents she received. She would say nothing with a light laugh, as if it didn't mean anything, and quickly change the subject, asking me instead about my day. Joe always made a big deal of birthdays, showering me with gifts or clothes and jewelry, and planning special dates or get-togethers with friends. I would downplay to Val how wonderful my birthday had been, feeling almost guilty since for her there was no comparable celebration. Wow. But I figured it was because money was tight in their household. I noticed, too, that she and her sister wives didn't seem as close as Alina and I were. Mostly, though, we were both too busy with our growing families to keep in close contact with each other. By our 7th anniversary, I had 3 children and was expecting my 4th. Alina also had 3. I began working part-time as a bookkeeper in our family-owned catering business to help out financially. Alina worked some too on the event side of the business. Soon I was working full-time, and as the company grew, gradually took on more duties. I enjoyed interacting with clients, and my organizational skills made me a good office manager, which boosted my confidence at work and in my personal life. At home, I began to want more independence in my relationship with Joe. I thought I was relying on him too much in some ways, spiritually, emotionally, for my happiness. Now that I had a good job, I also wanted more say-so in our spending and didn't want to have to explain every purchase I made. I kind of get that. Joe and I began fighting about money. I'm frugal by nature, but it began to bother me that I was still shopping at thrift stores and fretting over every penny, while neither Joe nor Alina seemed worried about their spending. We would go shopping, and I would head straight for the bargain racks, only to watch Alina snapped up more expensive clothes. Okay, so this seems to be a thing across the board. And I don't want to keep making comparisons, but this is Janelle and Mary. Literally, the 2 wives. This is Janelle and Mary. Mary was not as frugal as Janelle. And here you have, in this instance, the same situation where the person who is making more money or is like the financial person is being more frugal than the other people. And it is causing division. My frustration boiled over one day after I went on a shopping spree and bought a beautiful new bedspread. I came home excited to show it off and found Joe at his desk going over our bills. He was upset that I had made such a purchase without talking it over with him first and began questioning what I had done. If there's money for you to go out to dinner, why isn't there money for me to buy a new bedspread? I demanded. Ooh. Joe threw a handful of paperwork at me and said, "You do the bills then." Don't throw anything at me. because I can't guarantee what my response will be. Please be aware of my boundaries, and that is one of them. All right, Joe. I got my eye on Joe now. That's not the point, I yelled. I'll just take it back. As I stormed out of the room, Joe shouted that he didn't want me to return the bedspread, but it was too late. I was so steamed that I knew I'd never be able to enjoy it now. Back it went. Okay, see, y'all gonna get a little bit of the pettiness in me. The pettiness in me, I would have hurried up, washed that bedspread, put it on the bed, and then when he came in to lay in the bed, I'd be like, oh, no, no, no. You can't get on my new bedspread. You want it? Once again, this is maybe why I'm not married. Okay, for months, our relationship was tense and raw as we continued to have flare-ups, mostly over money. We finally began to mend our relationship after we started reading books by Stephen Covey and other relationship experts, and we were able to move towards interdependence, that midway point between dependence and independence. Joe and I were just getting our relationship back on track when we heard that Val's marriage had collapsed. Given our recent battles, I don't think either of us anticipated what would lay ahead. After years of not being close to Val, I wanted to reconnect with her. Once she moved to Montana, I was able to telephone her frequently and finally begin to hear about how terrible her marriage had been. As I listened to Val talk about her marriage one day, a strong feeling, one that was both protective and spiritual, came over me that she belonged in our family. I try to be tuned into these feelings of knowingness, the intuition that comes when God opens your mind and fills it with understanding. I guess that's what they're calling, the Browns call a testimony. Y'all correct me in the comments. The test comes after, when you have to show God what you're willing to do with the information, opportunity, or challenge he provides. The moments when I experience God's presence in my life always fill me with warmth, love, and joy. That's what I felt in that moment. I wanted Val to have everything I had, and I knew Joe could be to Val all that he was to me. I had long ago gotten over any need to compete with Val or to have a completely different life than hers. I understood what it was to love a sister wife, and I knew I could have that love for Val. I also knew that our family could provide the support needed by her 5 children, whom I had already cared about as though they were my own. After 10 years of marriage, Joe, Alina, and I reached a comfortable trust, and despite my recent challenges, I felt our marriage was strong enough to handle the addition of a new wife. At first, I kept my thoughts to myself, searching through prayer for confirmation that this was the right path. When Val returned to Utah to formalize her separation from Donald, she opened up more to me about her marital problems. It was difficult for me to listen as Val shared her experiences for 2 reasons. I felt so blessed in my own relationship, and I had been so blind to what was going on in her life. Why had I not been able to see it? Why hadn't I been there for Val? Val came to our house after our meeting with the church leaders, and we had just gathered the family for evening prayer when Joe came home. As he entered the room, he and Val exchanged looks, and I witnessed a spark of energy between them. So they all saw whatever this situation was, and they all had different feelings from it. But either way, the main concept was that there was something special that happened in that moment. It was my confirmation at that moment. I knew Val would marry Joe. Some days later, I spoke to Alina and learned that she had the same feeling about Val. Alina and I had never expected to be the only 2 women in Joe's life. He was a good man, and I knew he had a greater capacity to love. Like me, Alina thought Val would be a great sister wife for our family, but we decided to discuss it separately with Joe. When I went to talk to my husband, he wasn't too excited about the idea. Oh, I don't know, Joe told me. I want to see her happy, but my plate is pretty full right now. It is no small matter to ask your husband to take on the emotional and material responsibilities for another woman and her children. But I asked Joe not to dismiss the possibility out of hand, and respecting my strong feelings and those of Alina's, he agreed to consider it. Sometime later, Joe came to us and shared the strong impression he received during Val's last visit to our home, the sense that she would be his wife. We prayed for confirmation of our feelings and then for guidance, and we began to explore how Val felt about us. This family operates from a very different standpoint. They really do value one another's opinions, even to the point where these wives are the ones that suggested that Val be a part of their family even before Joe made his thoughts known. That's not what we saw with the Browns. Everything that happened with the Browns, in my opinion, was solely Cody. They could try to flip the narrative with Robin and him and make it seem like Mary started it, but that's not the case. Robin and him were doing something before. Mary's so into Cody that she probably didn't see it, or that she would hide it. Over the next several months, Alina and I made several trips to Montana to visit Val and her children. During my conversations with Val, I never brought up marriage to Joe or anyone close. I knew Val needed time to heal, and she was still deciding whether or not she even believed in plural marriage anymore. Val needed to reach her own conclusions about her future, a position we stuck to even after we openly approached Val about coming into our family. It was definitely difficult at times to watch my spouse fall in love with someone else, but they were fleeting hurts, feelings that I'd already learned to process during my own courtship and marriage. Mostly, I was excited because I understood how this new relationship would expand our family's love and bring positive changes to our lives. I never felt displaced by Val, and I trusted Joe's integrity and love for me completely. During their courtship, my relationship with Joe grew in ways I never anticipated. Once Joe and Val opened themselves to the idea, things progressed quickly. I think what sealed it for Val was seeing how Joe embraced her children. She knew she couldn't marry a man unless he wanted to build and was capable of building a relationship with each of them. Let me tell you something. For all you men out there, yes, I do have someone, but as you can see, there's nothing on my finger. And he's probably going to see this. I don't care. For all you men out there, if you are dating a woman that has children, please understand that even if she's not allowing you around her children right away, she very much so is paying attention with how you interact with them when you do, with how you respond to her when she's telling you certain things about them, what advice you may offer. If you say things like, how is so-and-so's day-to-day, what's going on with them, yada, yada, all that stuff matters. So I can completely understand how Val would fall more in love watching how a man was loving towards her children. That does make sense to me. That fall, we accepted Val into our family in a small ceremony attended by close family. While I didn't grow up thinking my twin sister and I would be married to the same man, and it did not seem weird to me in any way when it did happen, I know that some people are uncomfortable at the thought of two sisters sharing a husband. Me. I am some people. I am some people. I respect this family. I respect their decision, but it's hard for me to even fathom that. But I felt that God had his hand in it. The Old Testament offers examples of sisters who shared a husband, as does Mormon history and the experiences of our family and friends. It does offer some examples of it, and I can think of some examples of it that it did not work out well for the wives or their children. There was a lot of animosity that came from some of those dynamics, even someone being put into slavery. So I get what she's saying, but let's be clear, it doesn't always make for a happy ending. This form of polygamy is found in other cultures around the world and is even preferred in some. In her study of Mormon polygamous families, this is a footnote, which was based on the interviews of family members conducted in the 1930s, 70s, and 80s, Jessie L. Embry found that 25% of plural marriages involve sisters, which are known as sororal polygamy, SORORAL, in case I'm saying it wrong. That's interesting. Because of common family background and hopefully existing closeness, sisters often make perfect plural marriage companions. There's a good chance that if a husband is compatible with one sister, he'll be well matched with another. Oh, we really gonna say all of that now? Okay. Outside of polygamy, it was not uncommon in past generations for a man who lost his wife to then marry her sister. That is true, and that did happen even in the biblical period standpoint, if you believe in that. And today you hear stories all the time about siblings from one family who marry siblings from another family. But the situation can create interesting dynamics too. What happens if the sisters don't get along or one relationship collapses? I know of mothers who have had to listen to differing tales told by two daughters who shared a husband and then felt like they had to pick sides when one daughter eventually left that marriage. In our case, I was confident that Val and I could work through any difficulties, and there were some almost immediately. If there is a tricky aspect of plural marriage, it's making sure that everyone's motives are clear, united, and based on trust. Val and Joe were in her trailer home talking not long after she came into our family, and I needed to ask Joe about plans for the family picnic. When I knocked on her door, they both came out. That's sister-wise for you, always vying for her husband's attention, Val said. What? I wasn't doing that at all. Not at all, I told her. Alina, who joined us at the moment, chimed in. No, Val, Vicky wouldn't do that, she said. I knew how terribly Val had been hurt in her first marriage, but I underestimated what it would take for her to believe that our desire for happiness was sincere. Oh, this wasn't her cracking a joke and the other sister taking it too seriously. She really felt like they were disrupting her on purpose. Ooh-wee. I had naively figured that all Val needed to be happy was two super sister wives and a terrific husband. But as it turned out, we had much more work to do. Oh, that makes me feel like chapter 6 is going to be juicy, y'all. You guys, thank you so much for joining me for this reading. I actually got through that a lot quicker than I thought I would have. I may keep reading and do chapter 6, but you won't see it from until another day from now. If you guys haven't figured out yet, what I try to do with the recording schedule is I try to do when we do have a book is book previous episode, book previous episode, book previous episode. That way, for the people who are not interested in the book, they still do have some content that they can watch shortly following it. And I hope it's not a problem. I hope you guys are enjoying that. If you have not done so already, please ring that doorbell. Ding, 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 dong. I don't remember all the sounds that doorbells make, but yeah, go ahead and do that. Also, you know, the doorbell, that's a thumbs up. How many ways can I say like the video? It really does help in the algorithm. I know it's something that we always hear content curators say, but if you enjoy people's content, give that thumbs up button. Yes, you may have 4,000 likes when you go back and you look at your history, but it helps those people who you are enjoying to watch. Also, feel free, if you haven't, share the video, Get me out there. I appreciate it. I've seen so much growth from people sharing the video with their friends and things of that nature. And we are literally on the road to 1,000. As of today, which today is Sunday, you'll be seeing this on Tuesday, but today is Sunday. As of today, I'm at 990 subscribers. That is insane to me, you guys. This is happening so much faster than I predicted. I'm not going to tell you what my prediction was until after I get to 1,000. I'm going to have a little bit of a transparent moment with you all because, as I've said in previous videos, I do believe that there is power in the tongue. And sometimes, based on my belief system, I feel like some things don't need to be said out loud because I feel like the enemy will use certain things against you. So once I get to my 1,000, I'm gonna have a little bit of a transparent moment with you guys, just to kind of let you in a little bit on my mind. I know I say some things here and there, but I am grateful. So I want you all to know where I am coming from. Now, enough of me rambling. I hope you guys have a great remainder of your day, and until next time.